Live streaming is on.
Got it.
Hey guys, good morning. I'm on a little bit early, so I apologize. I'm going to wait a couple minutes. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I'm going to show this video and then we'll talk a little bit about it. And then I will go ahead and post some practice.
Like what? What? What are you trying to say? Oh my God. Y'all are grown ass people. Grown. Is she falling out in the street? Oh Lord. Y'all ain't really grown yet. You're 3/4 grown. 3/4. You're almost there. You ain't there yet. I don't want to do this thing. Ooh. We'll see.
Okay, guys, I got a little bit early. I apologize. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes and we'll go ahead and we'll talk about adding fractions with unlike denominators.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then when I go in again, here's that fifth grade one, and here's that part. I can see it on top.
Cherry fun, right?
I tell you, it's hard.
It was part. I don't think it's been part first.
Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. So yesterday, you guys, we did a lesson on adding fractions, and we looked at adding fractions with common denominators. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we add and subtract. Adding and subtracting are the same. How we do this with different denominators. And if you remember, denominator is the bottom number, D is down. So like I mentioned, unfortunately, we're having some problems with our internet today. So I'm going to, I couldn't use my tablet, or else we'll do tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get a chance to kind of do some practice and I'll be able to explain a little bit. We're going to watch this video and then I will, you know, talk about it afterwards. I might stop it in between too. So I'm going to go ahead and start this.
Add to that the fraction. What is this? What is this going to equal? So when you first look at this, you say, oh, I have different denominators here. It's not obvious how I add these. And you'd be right. And the way to actually move forward is to find a common denominator, to convert both of these fractions into fractions that have a common denominator. So how do you think about a common denominator? Well, a common denominator is going to have to be a common multiple of these two denominators, of 10 and 6. So what's a common multiple of 10 and 6? And
Okay, a multiple, you guys, when he's talking about that, that's a number that both 10 and 6 go into. Okay, so a little cheat thing I will teach, you can always multiply those two numbers times each other. So you can get 6 times 10 is going to be 60, but sometimes there's a smaller number. Okay, but if you're in a bind, you can always do 6 times 10. The only thing is, at the end, you might have to reduce it a little bit more. But if you're in a bind, you can always multiply these two numbers. That's going to give you a common denominator. Okay.
Simplest to find the least common multiple. And a good way of doing that is start with the larger denominator, your 10. And say, okay, is 10 divisible by 6? No. Okay, no. Is 20 divisible by 6? No. Is 30 divisible by 6? Yes. 30 is divisible by 6. So I'm just going through the multiples of 10 and saying, well, what is the smallest multiple of 10 that is divisible by 6? And that's going to be 30. So I can rewrite both of these fractions as something over 30. So 9 over 10. How would I write that as something over 30? Well, I multiplied the denominator. I'm multiplying the denominator by 3. I just multiplied the denominator by 3. So if I don't want to change the value of the fraction, I have to do the same thing to the numerator. I have to multiply that by 3 as well. Because now I'm just multiplying the numerator by 3 and the denominator by 3, and that doesn't change the value of the fraction. So 9 times 3 is 27. So once again, 9/10 and 27/30 represent the same number. I've just written it now with the denominator of 30. And that's useful because I can also write 1/6 with the denominator of 30. Let's do that. So 1/6 is what? Over 30. I encourage you to pause the video and try to think about it. So what did we do to go from 6 to 30? We had to multiply by 5. So if we multiply the denominator by 5, we have to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. So 1 times 5, 1 times 5 is 5. So 9/10 is the same thing as 27/30, and 1/6 is the same thing as 5/30. And now we can add. And it's fairly straightforward. We have a certain number of 30ths added to another number of 30ths. So 27/30 plus 5/30, well, that's going to be 27. That's going to be 27 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5/30 plus 5/30, which of course is going to be equal to, what is this, 32/30. 32 over 30. And if we want, we could try to reduce this fraction. We have a common factor of 32 and 30. They're both divisible by, they're both divisible by 2. So if we divide the numerator and the denominator by 2, numerator divided by 2 is 16. Denominator divided by 2 is 15. So this is the same thing as 16/15. And if I wanted to write this as a mixed number, 15 goes into 16 one time with the remainder 1. So this is the same thing as 1 and 1/15. Let's do it.
Okay, guys, there were a lot of extra steps in there, but I want to just kind of, we'll go back to 9/10 plus 1/6. Okay, so when you have unlike denominators, what you need to find is the smallest denominator in this case, which is 6. You have to find a number that 6 and 10 both go into. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, does 6 go into 10? No. And then you start doing the multiples of 10. So you would do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So it does go into 30, but like I said, it would also go into 60. So when you get unlike denominators, in this case, we have a 10 and a 6, it's what's the smaller one of the two, which in this case is the 6. What will it go into evenly with the other denominator, the larger one? Okay, and like I mentioned, if you do 6 times 10, it's going to be 60. You know, both those numbers go into 60. But we found 30 was a smaller number because it's going to save you some time at the end. Because you have to do more of this reducing if you do the 6 times 10. So what number 6 goes into that 10 also goes into? And it's going to be 30. 6 times 5 is 30. 10 times 3 is 30, okay? So when you have the different denominators, you have to try to find what the smaller of the two denominators, in this case 6, will go into evenly with the larger denominator, in this case 10. okay? And then once you get this, you're just going to do a straight, like we did yesterday. 27 plus 5 is 32. And on the test, sometimes that might be the answer, but sometimes it might ask you to reduce. And then, you know, like he did, he just took 2, divided 2 into both. But, and then the last thing, we have improper fraction, which I don't want you to worry about now. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But let's do another one here.
Let's say that we wanted to add 1/2 to 11 twelfths to 11 over 12. And I encourage you to pause the video and see if you can work this out.
Okay, in this case, remember I said the smaller denominator, 2, does it go into 12? In this case, it does. We know that 6 times 2 is 12. So this one's a little bit easier because the first thing you want to do, just like up here, does 6 go into 10? It doesn't. But in this case, 2 does go into 12. So we're like, okay, 12 is going to be my common denominator here because I know 12 goes into 12 and 2 also goes into 12. So let's play this out and we'll show you how you do this one.
We want to find a common denominator. If these had the same denominator, we just add them immediately. We want to find a common denominator because right now they're not the same. Well, what we want to find is a common multiple of 2 and 12. And ideally, we'll find the lowest common multiple of 2 and 12. And just like we did before, let's start with the larger of the two numbers, 12. And we could just say, well, 12 times 1 is 12. So that you could view that as the lowest multiple of 12. And is that divisible by 2? Yeah, sure. 12 is divisible by 2. So 12 is actually the least common multiple of 2 and 12. So we could write both of these fractions as something over 12. So 1/2 is what over 12? Well, to go from 2 to 12, you multiply by 6. So we'll also multiply the numerator by 6. And we see 1/2 and 6/12. These are the same thing. 1 is half of 2. 6 is half of 12. And how would we write 11 twelfths as something over 12? Well, it's already written as something over 12. 11 twelfths already has 12 in the denominator, so we don't have to change that. 11 twelfths, and now we're ready to add. So this is going to be equal to 6. This is going to be equal to 6 plus 11. 6 plus 11 over 12. Over 12. We have 6 twelfths plus 11 twelfths is going to be 6 plus 11 over 12, which is equal to 6 plus 11 is 17 twelfths. If we want to write it as a mixed number, that is what? 12 goes into 17 one time with the remainder 5. So 1 and 5 over 12. Let's do one more of these. This is
okay. That last step, you guys, all that is doing, it's an improper fraction, and we'll cover that a little bit later. Don't get so hung up in that right now. Really, the biggest thing is finding a common denominator, okay? And once you do that, we can add or subtract, because once both our denominators are the same, we can go ahead and, whether it's an addition problem or a subtraction problem, okay? We'll get into the reducing and fractions a little bit later. So don't get so caught up in that if you have a hard time understanding that.
all right. Let's say that we wanted to add, we're going to add 3/4 to, we're going to add 3/4 to 1/5 to 1 over 5. What is this going to be? And once again, pause the video.
Okay, so in this case, 4 is the smallest of the two denominators. So we have to find a number that both 4 and 5 go into. So if I do 4 doesn't go into 5 evenly, okay, the next multiple of 5 is 10, doesn't go into 10 evenly. The next one would be 15, doesn't go into 15 evenly. But the next one is 20. Now this is one of those cases I told you, if you just start out by multiplying the two denominators, 4 times 5, it's going to be 20. In this case, that works perfectly, okay? So we know both these, the 4 and the 5, are going to go into 20, okay, because we multiplied 4 times 5. So in this case, that one works out. And you can always, like I said, you guys, you can always do that. But it just might be a little more work on the back end, but you're going to get common denominators by multiplying the two denominators times each other. Okay.
We have different denominators here. We want to rewrite these so they have the same denominators. We have to find a common multiple, ideally the least common multiple. So what's the least common multiple of 4 and 5? We'll start with the larger number and let's look at its multiples and keep increasing them until we get one that's divisible by 4. So 5 is not divisible by 4. 10 is not divisible by 4, or perfectly divisible by 4 is what we care about. 15 is not perfectly divisible by 4. 20 is divisible by 4. In fact, that is 5 times 4. That is 20. So what we could do is we could write both of these fractions as having 20 in the denominator, or 20 is a denominator. So we could write 3/4 is something over 20. So to go from 4 to 20 in the denominator, we multiplied by 5. So we also do that to the numerator. We multiplied 3 times 5 to get 15. All I did to go from 4 to 20 multiplied by 5, so I have to do the same thing to the numerator. 3 times 5 is 15. 3/4 is the same thing as 15/20. And over here, 1/5, what is that over 20? Well, to go from 5 to 20, you have to multiply by 4. So to do the same thing in the numerator, I have to multiply this numerator times 4 to get 4/20. So now I've rewritten this instead of 3/4 plus 1/5. It's now written as 15/20 plus 4/20. And what is that going to be? Well, that's going to be 15 plus 4
ABC's Patrick.
is 19/20. 19/20. And we're
Nope.
done.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Okay, guys.
Let's say that we have the fraction.
I'm going to stop.
9/10.
There's another one. This is just another way to do this, but we will cover this tomorrow. The one thing the video didn't mention, so whenever you multiply denominator by, you have to do the same thing with the top number. So if you're multiplying, like in that case, you're multiplying the bottom times 4, you have to multiply the numerator by 4. It's just, it's a way of keeping the fraction balanced, okay? So I'm sorry this wasn't ideal, you guys. Hopefully you got a little bit of an idea. And remember, like I said, you can always multiply the two denominators times each other, and that's going to give you a common denominator. But there'll be some more back end, more work on the back end. You'll do a little more reducing. So we want to try to find the smallest number. I will cover that tomorrow. Hopefully, use our internet connections. It's raining out, so maybe that's causing some of our wireless problems. But I will certainly go over that tomorrow. I'll go ahead and post some practice. You can try it. If you can't do it, don't get frustrated. We'll certainly cover it tomorrow. All right, you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.